Got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below my feet. 8,000 miles below my feet by now. People walking around upside down. Got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below my feet right now. And people are carrying on upside down. Well, I got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below my feet. I got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below the ground. Yeah, people are carrying on with their lives upside down. They got no reason to believe that I'm respectively upside down from them. I got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below my eyes. There would be birds chirping in a blue sky. Got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below the ground. There's people driving their kids to school upside down. They're upside down, but they feel like they're right side up. Yeah, wherever you go on earth, you'll never feel upside down. No, you got no reason to believe anyone anywhere is upside down. If gravity works it all out for you, isn't that profound? Well, I got no reason to believe spherical is the same thing as round. Got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below the ground. People are flying in airplanes upside down. And from their perspective, I'm upside down. We got no reason to believe an obvious lie. 8,000 miles under your feet, there's a blue sky. We took it all on faith. That's why we got no reason to trust the government. 'Cause govern means to control, and ment means mental, which means mind control. You got no reason to want to sell your soul. You know where you'll go, find some blue sky if you dig a big enough hole. I got no reason to believe we got probes in Uranus. You know that NASA recently realized that my anus is a lot more interesting than they previously thought. Fucking bizarre, man. Every time I try to watch NASA or like read about NASA, they always got to mention my anus. It's always about my anus with them. It's fucking bizarre, man. I mean, they're not going to my anus, in case you were wondering. They say they're going to my anus with a probe, not without my, consent, which they won't get. It's kind of bold to make claims about going to my anus with a probe when you haven't even talked to me about it yet. I guess they feel like they can just sort of, make it true by saying it. That's cool. It's not true though. I hope. I got no reason to believe gas could form a big fucking ball. I got no reason to believe a big ball of gas could reflect sunlight from billions of miles away. Eyeball. I got no reason to believe. Anything that NASA says. I got no reason to believe. $8,000 miles below my feet. And there's people upside down walking down the street. They don't feel upside down, but compared to me, they better be upside down. That is, if you're living on a big ball on the outside of the ball. Well, logic would have you assume you fall off the sides if you go that way. That's why I always say, like, if you land on the moon, you better land on top. It'd be funny if they actually got there. They're like, "Oh shit, we can't land anywhere but on top of this thing." They just finally realize, okay, actually, it's not possible to land on the bottom of a ball and like have it seem like it's right side up. It turns out we can only land on the top of this thing. It's a big ball, yes, but we got no reason to believe we can land on the bottom of it or on the side of it. Or they get there and they try to land on the side and they're like, wait, we're sideways. This isn't going to work. We're going to fall. Wait a second. Just see their whole like idea of reality just shattering. It's like, wait, you can't land anywhere on a ball? Oh man, you can only land on top. Oh fuck. What's really strange is that people who seem perfectly reasonable to me are now believing that the earth is rising up at a constant speed. That's the only reason we have weight. And it's the only reason there's any kind of I guess what they say is that earth is rising up, so there's nothing that's actually falling. Nothing ever actually falls. And like, I guess you could look at it that way, but it's kind of silly because it doesn't really look like that's what's happening. Like if I jump off a cliff, I feel like I'm falling. Like you could look at it like I just stepped out off this ledge. I stepped out away from the ledge, and then the lake rose up to meet my feet. I guess it's just 6 of one, a half dozen of the other. But But clearly, it doesn't really. I mean, do you think it's possible to be indoctrinated to think that that's what's actually taking place? I mean, could it really be that? Like, I mean, is that possible? Like, I just wonder if these people that buy into that theory, if they're actually. I mean, I can't. I don't think you'll ever see it any differently. I mean, I think they will admit that it does appear that things are falling down, but that's not what they think is happening because of what they've seen with these demonstrations where there's like the demonstrations are questionable in my opinion. I think that they sort of have a conclusion and then they're trying to find ways to get to that conclusion. It's I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to seem insulting. Like I do think there's some people that genuinely are convinced of this. I don't think it's just a big, you know, I think maybe it was maybe it started as a prank or something, but like there's people that I think are genuinely, you know, have bought into that idea now, and it's my opinion that it's an extreme conclusion to come to without having. I mean, I would try to look at the demonstrations from as many angles as possible, you know, before just jumping to such an extreme conclusion, because a conclusion like that comes with so many other things that you have to consider. You know, it's like I mean, just it's like you have to take so much on faith at that point that like there's a place that we this whole system could be moving through indefinitely without any turbulence or impedance or friction or any like noticeable wear and tear. I mean, like in nature, things there's variation. You know, it's not like everything is just perfectly straight. There's like when a bubble is rising up in the water, you know, there's air pressure inside that bubble. I mean, what are the walls of that bubble made out of? Air? I don't know. But but that bubble is rising up, you know, and there's air pressure in there. Like if there could be theoretically be a little bug inside that bubble and he's just floating up and and perhaps he wouldn't feel the motion if he was blind or something or if he was just I'm trying to like analyze this from a perspective of like, is there anything like this in nature that takes place where there's like a entire system within a enclosed area that's got air pressure and everything, where it's just a constant like, it's like where is it rising to? I mean, that's just the obvious question. Is that like asking who made like who made God or whatever? And it's kind of like you can't ask these certain questions. I mean, obviously with who made God, it's like God made God. He made everything. You got to keep an eye on the time. What time is it? Yeah, okay, I got a few minutes left. But to believe that the Earth is rising at a constant rate, you'd have to think that like, I mean, it's just so constant. Like I hear what their arguments are though, and some, it's like for anything to have weight, you have to have something to push against you. And like, let's say you were on an elevator that was, or like something that was jamming you up at a rapid, you know, faster than you you can, to where you feel like you're being pushed. You know, like if you were to be standing on a scale during that experience, you would weigh more because there's this force pushing you up, and so there's motion. You know, being you're pushing down harder on the scale, and and so you would weigh more and you know same as if like if you were falling you would weigh less or whatever, you know, like if you were on a scale and you were going down at a rapid rate in an elevator you would weigh less, and so it's like weight has a lot to do with how much, you know, you can think of it like how much motion is being applied underneath you, or just, you know, I've thought about this long and hard because I'm wondering how people are convinced about this, and I understand that argument, and but I think it's like, why do you have to even go that with the motion though? It's like perhaps there's just the only reason things fall is just because there's nothing supporting them at that moment. They're falling until something can support their their existence, whatever. I mean, can we just leave it at that? Or like, well, why don't things fall sideways or whatever? Why ask why? I mean, I don't know. Like, where are we going with this? Like, I mean, if you follow me, you dig what I'm saying here. You guys, are you guys uprising earthers? I mean, see, I'm not going to say that they're stupid or something. I think that perfectly smart people can believe in something like that. I think it has more to do with a belief, though. Really, I mean, there are some arguments that they pose that make sense, though. But all the same, to accept that idea, it's like you have to really. There's a lot of stuff you have to just take on faith, like in the sense of where are we rising, like where are we going, and like how come there's no impedance or no turbulence or no physical, like they claim the physics demonstrate this perfectly, there's no, it's undeniable is what these guys claim. And and they'll show these demonstrations where it's like, well, here's one that I think I can interpret more thoroughly than them, or just I think I can interpret differently than them. I've come to a different conclusion. They have a ping pong ball glued to a slinky. And first, they show the slinky in a water bottle, and they let go of it, and it drops to the bottom. It's heavy, it sinks to the bottom of the water bottle. It's got water in it. And then they show a ping pong ball floating at the top of the water, Then they glue the slinky to the ping pong ball, put it in the water bottle, and the ping pong ball is still floating, right? And the slinky gets stretched out. The heavier part, the bulk of the slinky sinks to the bottom still because it's got weight. Pulls it down, it's more dense or whatever. And but then it's stretched out, it's still glued to the ping pong ball. So it's like they call this a density gradient, I think is what they were calling it, or a buoyancy gradient or something. I thought that was kind of clever. So you can see the heavier stuff, it's more dense, is at the bottom, and then lighter stuff is, it becomes stretched out to where it's like it's attached to the most buoyant thing in the water bottle. So then they I hope I explained that correctly or enough for you to understand. Maybe you've seen this demonstration, but they show the water bottle. If they drop the water bottle and they film it and they show it in slow motion and free fall, and the slinky has compressed, and they're like, look, the slinky went back up. It compressed, and then they see that and they're like, there's no buoyancy in free fall. And I think what they're watching there isn't necessarily proof of no buoyancy. I mean, to make a claim like there's no buoyancy in free fall, like, well, what about a feather that's, that's drifting, or a piece of paper? It's showing buoyancy, isn't it? And it's falling. But like, here, let me finish my first thought, which is like the slinky is compressing during free fall because it's falling down. Like if you were in an elevator and it just started to fall, you'd probably float up off the ground, and you can probably do a little somersault like NASA does, But like the thing is you're falling, so the heavier thing is falling faster, I guess, maybe. And so that's why you'd be floating for a second before you hit the ground. But like that's what happened with the slinky. It's being pushed up because it's falling down, and that's why it compresses and gives you the appearance that there's no buoyancy in free fall. But I don't know if that statement checks out. I think they just leapt to that conclusion a little hastily, in my opinion. What do you guys think? You saw some science once? Oh man, you guys are really just dumbed down, aren't you? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you, 16 Alpha V. I don't think you're dumb. That was a joke. I don't know if I should even joke like that anymore. I'm trying to. This is my New Year's resolution. I'm trying to start now, but my New Year's resolution is to not be insulting towards people. And I guess I could make like a caveat where I'm like, unless I'm kidding and it's obvious that I'm kidding and like people don't feel offended, and if they do, then I'll apologize profusely and say, hey, I didn't mean it. Whatever, try to patch it up. But the point is that's just complications I'd rather avoid. But I do want to allow myself to be silly. So I could probably come up with other ways of being silly that don't involve making somebody seem like they're stupid or something. The idea is to not be insulting and like to lead by example, or just because I mean it's so easy to like if people want to start having a shit slinging contest, I'm good at doing that too. I can sling shit, but like I don't like being covered in shit, and I don't think anybody else does. So I don't really see the point in going that direction. And in fact, aren't we trying to, focus on like the golden rule? Like I think that's pretty much, that goes without saying that nobody wants to be insulted. So let's just not insult each other. Can you imagine how different the world would be if nobody was insulting, I mean, I think that would make like a pretty big difference in the way things are going. I mean, you have to, there's times when people are going to say you're being insulting by the way you're talking, and it's like, well, it's like you're not trying to be insulting, but it just comes across that way because the person is too sensitive, or maybe you don't realize you're being condescending or something. But those individual cases, you have to just let it work itself out one way or another. Maybe you'll realize that you were condescending and be like, oh shit, I just learned something about myself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be like that. But I guess I just have habits or something that I wasn't even aware of, or habitual behaviorisms that I just wasn't aware of, just to be able to like show some restraint when it comes to like, because here's what's going to happen. People are going to challenge you, when you like say, I'm not going to be insulting to anybody anymore. They're going to be like, oh yeah, well, that's just because you're a dumb fuck, and you don't, you can't come up with a good response. You're not clever enough to think of a witty reply. So you're just going to try to pretend that you're just being cool because you're just fucking stupid. They're going to come at you like that. So you're going to be like, oh, maybe you're correct. Like, how do you respond to that? You just be like, well, at least I'm not like insulting to anybody. Like, you can have your opinion about me. That's part of being free. I'm not going to try to cramp your opinion or like tell you that you're wrong for having an opinion. That there's no such thing as an incorrect opinion, unless the person's lying to you about their opinion, in which case that is an incorrect opinion. But in most cases, there is no such thing as an incorrect opinion. So you're allowed to think that I'm dumb, and I'm allowed to let that sort of just bounce off of me and just diffuse itself, because I don't think that. I don't agree with what you say. However, the one difference between you and me might be that I'm not going to be insulting towards somebody like that. I'm not going to try to do that. So, just from the outside looking in, they saw our interaction. Most people probably lean towards the person who's not being insulting as being the more, upstanding type of person. Like, I mean, you win the debate in most cases if you didn't default to name calling, ad hom fucking shit talk, which is, why, flat earth debates are really interesting, because in most cases, it's the globe side of the argument that usually spirals out of control and starts throwing a bunch of insults. Because I think the flat and stationary earth is just about honesty, really. I mean, it might be about us being dumb. I don't know. We just don't understand. But as far as just being honest, I mean, it's like, yeah, the earth isn't moving. Last time I checked. And it's a level plane, That's why we interact with it as such. So that's about as honest as it gets, Like, I could even be more honest and say, yeah, I'm supposed to believe that it's in motion around the sun and all this other crazy stuff, and I can give you all that information too if you want, but that's just what I've been told. And I'm told that I'm stupid if I don't believe it. But the honest reality is we treat Earth as though it was a stationary plane. That's fact. If you're going to go fly a jet airliner with hundreds of passengers and it comes down to like, okay, now it's down to brass tacks where it's like there's some safety at stake. We don't want to do things incorrectly because people could die and it could be a really drastic, bad, tragic incident. So now what? Is it still a flat and stationary Earth when you're flying it? You're landing a jet airplane with 300 people on it. Is it still a flat and stationary Earth? Yeah, it is. You don't have to do any excess math or any fucking weird alignment or, constructing of runways in a certain, you don't have to do any of that. That'd be a big waste of time. You could do that and you'd be able to land your plane just fine, but you don't have to do that because the Earth is flat and stationary. If it wasn't, then you'd have to factor all that stuff in when you'd have to land going with the rotation, right in line perfectly with it. But you don't have to do that. The Earth is flat and stationary. If you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be honest with? I don't know. God, maybe? I guess you can't be honest with anybody if that's the case. You're right.